You can't cancel us.
David.
The country that's about to start World War III. I mean, how much sympathy are they going to get after they do
David,
that?
Listen, if we had more than 3 listeners, we would already be canceled, okay? So, this is kind of a be careful what you wish for kind of thing. If we were as awesome as we thought we are, we were as legendary
the legends
in the real world
mind.
as we are in our own minds, we would already be canceled. So,
that's good to know. That's good news.
Count the obscurity as a blessing.
Silver linings, As we like
Silver Linings Playbook, something, Jennifer.
No.
Something, whatever her name is.
iCloud hack. The fappening.
Graphic. We're not going down that road.
Oh. Okay.
David, how was your week?
Pretty shitty. I gotta be honest with you. I looked my own mortality in the face.
Did you?
And it did not look great.
Did you go like swimming with sharks or, skydive out of a plane?
Wrestle with an alligator, which is kind of what we like to do down here in South Florida.
We are the proverbial Florida men.
Well, we are men and we are in Florida. However, we don't smoke illegal substances too often. And when we do, we definitely don't eat other people's faces off. So anyway, no, Dane, it came much simpler. I was eating a chicken breast and broccoli, as is per the usual, because I like to keep my girlish figure year-round. And I did not see that there was a bone in it, bit down and broke a
Was this allegedly a
tooth.
boneless chicken breast?
No, it was bone in, but I thought I trimmed off all the good stuff and left just fault. The cage. But there was a little assassin in there in a bone form.
He got you.
And I bit down, and by golly, Miss Molly, my tooth went bye-bye. I was like, am I tasting filling? Some of 'em a bitch.
Gross.
But, I went to the Friedman Dental Organization group.
Are you sure they want to be associated with us?
They probably don't be. But this is another free
Maybe you should
advertisement.
Think twice before dropping names. People that we haven't cleared it with.
They're the best things ever that have ever happened to dentistry ever. In South Florida, at least. And they took good care of me and gave me a little bit of my fight back, a little more of my vigor. So I can record today. I would have been very quiet and very sullen.
You're not sitting here pissing and moaning about a sore tooth right now.
No, it's being taken care of by the best in the profession. Right, exactly. And I appreciate that for that, but death comes for us all, Dane. All a man can do is smile back. And hopefully not have a missing tooth while he does it. Exactly.
I like that. Very well. Very well. Nice word.
Thank you.
All right.
You want to jump in?
I think we should. Let's do it.
Dive on in.
Weapons of Meme Destruction Podcast, episode 38, can be found at wmdpodcast.com/38. Can also be found on all your favorite podcast catchers, as well as YouTube. Make sure anywhere you find us, like, subscribe, give us all the stars they allow you to give us, and share the show with friends and fam.
Force us upon others. Take two? Can I get a take two?
No.
Force us upon other people. Like, even if they don't want it, like,
strap them down and hit play, baby.
Again, it's not illegal yet. You don't need Rohypnol for this one.
Whoa.
Just too unwilling.
That was a big word. Is that the word of the episode, Rohypnol?
I don't think it should be. There's a lot of law cases involved with that one.
All right. Well, so last week we tried to cram some extra topics in, and we went a little long. We hope you enjoyed the extra content. But this week, we thought, you know what? Let's scale it back. Let's stick to one topic.
Let's make it more succinct.
Right. One topic, and I mean, because there's a lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous, a lot of going on with this topic. So let's jump in. So the topic of the week is Biden's complete and utter circumvention of the legislative process to get his, lefty wish list of gun control.
That's a very derogatory way to say that he's misrepresenting things.
I think that was about
the
nicest way that I could say what I really think
he's
about
misrepresenting
him and this particular policy.
his moves to get his law passed.
Yeah. So as you can imagine, unless you've been under a rock, you've probably heard Biden say things, just random things. I mean, just in regular press conferences.
Oh, I think that's fair to say, Dane.
Random.
He does just say random things a lot of the time. Like, were we talking about that, Joe? Like, well, that one time back in Cincinnati.
Listen, nobody is going to accuse creepy Uncle Joe of having a silver tongue. Okay? Let's just admit that.
Maybe that's the problem. Maybe he does have a silver tongue. That's why he trips over it all the time.
This could be.
Hi-yo.
Could be. So, on this particular policy of, his gun control agenda, he had a lot of stupid things to say. And we figured we would just dedicate an episode to pointing them out. Hopefully,
I think we've been pretty fair to Joe, by the way. We haven't really come straight at him until now.
That's true. That's true. We've been going more macro policy in several of the episodes, not really at Joe himself.
Some of the things he's done, perhaps, but never directly at him. And again, I think we're taking the high road because we're not going directly at, senility. Is he fit for the job? We're going for what he's saying himself.
Yeah, we're judging the man on his words.
What they asked us to do, right?
Well, what we can discern of what we think his words are.
Correct.
To the best of our ability. So we're going to stop bearing the lead and we're going to jump in. If you didn't know, Biden had a press conference. I believe it was Thursday of this week. So that would have been, April 8th, 2021, where he basically laid out his executive gun control agenda. And obviously he wants to filter it through the regulatory agencies, such as the ATF, because he probably is pretty sure he can't get what he wants through the Senate with the filibuster enacted. So he basically just gave us a roadmap of how he is just going to completely wipe his ass with the Constitution. And we're just supposed to take it and like it because he's absolutely not a tyrant for doing any of this stuff.
He's sleepy Uncle Joe.
Yeah.
All he wants is the best for everybody.
Yeah. He can't be evil, nefarious.
He would never bomb a country.
Otherwise disingenuous.
Within the first 100 days of his presidency.
Right.
He'd never do that.
He's such a nice guy.
And then, by the way, what spurred all this on? The attacker in Boulder?
I mean, I wouldn't say that spurred it on. He was pretty open during his campaign. He even reached out to gun grabber in chief Beto O'Rourke and said, I want you to basically lead up my task force of gun regulation. So he was pretty open during the campaign. That he wanted to do it.
But yeah,
Boulder gives him a convenient excuse.
And didn't we find out that dude was in ties with Syria? Like he was Syrian? And we just bombed
He was
that
a
country?
Syrian immigrant. But that's neither here nor there. Point is that, yes, it's a convenient little narrative for him to weave into what he already wanted to do before he came to office. So, we're going to stop bearing the lead and we're going to jump into what Joe actually had to say. So,
please.
Coming right off the top, Joseph has to say, nothing I'm about to propose impedes the Second Amendment. And listen, David, when I heard that, I was completely put at ease. I just knew that the rest of what he had to say was not going to violate the Second Amendment. Because, if any politician says it, it must be true.
See, when he said that, I felt the exact opposite. I was like, it impedes. What the hell? Impedes means to block progress too. There's nothing to progress here, Joseph. It's in there. It's law.
Well, okay.
Don't impede it.
If you're focusing on the impede word, that may be, I may have misquoted him. I'm paraphrasing. I think he said that, but okay.
Sure,
yes.
sure. So what you're saying is that you just want to change the thing, but you're not going to change it.
Right.
That sounds very Joe Biden to me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change it. I'm just going to change it, y'all.
You big dumb dummies.
Yeah, you pony-faced, dog-faced liars or whatever the hell he calls everybody.
Pony soldiers.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
So then, just right off of that one, Mr. Biden uses it like a diving board to jump right into probably the most idiotic thing that he had to say for the whole day, is that no amendment to the Constitution is absolute. Straight from the lips of Premier Biden himself. No amendment to the Constitution is absolute. Now, I had two thoughts immediately when I heard that. First thought was, all right, Joe, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I guess I won't be paying my income taxes this year because the 16th Amendment is not absolute. David, you withholding? You withholding taxes from the withholders? I feel
like I'm not going to take a lot of my financial cues from Mr. Joe Biden, Mr. President, as he is. So I don't feel like, invest in Slinkies. They're going to make a huge comeback.
I loved those things when I was 47.
Everyone loves a Slinky. You got to get a Slinky. A little outdated, Joseph.
So I'm not paying my income taxes this year. Thanks for that, Joe. But the other one that comes to mind that I think is pretty absolute, or at least God, I would hope it would be, is the 13th Amendment. Because there's going to be some really bummed out people if slavery, if the abolition of slavery is not absolute.
You know what that does? It brings me back to a Dane Cook joke, is maybe that's why they were freed, but they weren't absolutely freed. So they still gotta, it's pending. We're not gonna rule it out.
Well, hey, listen, all I gotta say is Joe has had some, I'm not gonna call them Freudian slips, but he's had some slips, several slips,
and we're gonna take the
about what Joe happens to think about a particular segment of society. And let's just say that if he thinks the 13th Amendment is not absolute, that's not very good considering the slips.
And we're going to take the high road and not list the myriad of follies that he's listed.
Right. Or we're not going to drop the R word and say that Joe is a racist because that's a tactic of the other side. We're just going to, let everybody come to their own conclusions.
When they hit low, we go high.
That's right. We're so high up on the high road, we're nothing but a dot to everybody else.
Yeah,
we're so
look at
high.
us. We would be a beacon, but you can't even see us because we're so high on life.
So next, Joe triples down on his stupid sayings of the day.
So he triple dog dared.
We did. Yeah, and he failed miserably. He says, from the beginning, you couldn't own any weapon you wanted. Now, for that one, Joe, let's play a miniature game of tit for tat.
Oh, I love tits.
Okay.
Tats.
So, Joe, can you provide me the source where, quote unquote, in the beginning, at the founding, you couldn't have any gun you wanted? I'll give you a second. All right, nothing. Okay, what I have, Joe, is I have the Second Amendment, where it specifically says that we have the right to keep and bear arms. Now, they very well could have written the word, you have the right to keep and bear muskets, which would eliminate you from having cannons and puckle guns.
No one's ever going to invent anything better than this sweet-ass thing that takes 5 minutes to reload. No one's going to do it. So I challenge you.
My source for the counterpoint, Joe, is the thing that you say is not absolute. So I grant it. If you say it's not absolute, then I guess my argument maybe isn't as strong as I think it is. But, all other things being equal, the amendment itself doesn't limit what guns somebody could have. Doesn't say not allowed to have cannons, not allowed to have puckle guns.
What the hell's
only muskets?
Pause. What the hell's a puckle gun?
You never seen a puckle gun?
Excuse the hell me?
It was basically a forerunner to a Gatling gun. I think it had like 8.
Oh, is it that thing that you spun and then it
No, because that was an actual Gatling gun.
Okay.
I don't know how exactly the shells were ejected, but I think it was like an 8-chambered gun where you would just basically shoot it and you could rotate it and shoot it. And that was in existence during the Revolutionary War. I think it was invented in like 1715.
And there was no exemptions of the puckle gun?
Nope.
Huh, that's interesting.
Very well could have done. It was a technology that existed at the time.
High rate of fire. High caliber.
So, I don't know where Joe's getting this. You couldn't just own whatever you want in the beginning, but they had a clear opportunity to say no puckle guns, and yet they didn't do that. So.
There wasn't huge Coachella-like festivals back then, so maybe the mass shooting couldn't affect the puckle gun because there was like a quartet that would attract 30 people.
Yeah, no Coachellas, but they had Boston, they had tea parties and whatnot.
Well, yeah. I mean, they love their crumpets. The old country and such.
So moving on to Joe's next little foray into idiocy. He makes a big hullabaloo about this scary thing called ghost guns. David, aren't you just terrified of something called a ghost gun?
I feel like we need to call a priest because we need an exorcism for these ghost guns. It's murdering all these ghost people that we needed ghost help.
It's making ghosts out of people with guns.
Oh my God. It's turning them into what it is.
It's like quadruple entendres.
It sounds like it should have been involved in Godzilla versus Kong.
So Joseph, okay. So ghost guns. His argument here is that key parts of a gun need to have serial numbers. Now, I get it, Joe. You've never seen a gun outside of, maybe Hollywood, and the next 4-degree of separation of Kevin Bacon from you of your social circle has also never seen a gun. But there are key parts that are required to have serial numbers, and those are called lower receivers. I could have a railing, I could have a trigger, I could have a firing pin, I could have a barrel, I could have all of the other constituent parts of a gun, and those don't have a serial number. Who cares? Because if I put all of those things together and there's no lower receiver, I don't have a gun. I don't have a functional gun. And the lower receiver is required to have a serial number if you buy it from a gun store, and et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know what quote unquote key parts you're referring to, Joe, that need to have a serial number, but we kind of already got that covered. So I don't know. The plastic railings on the side of the gun, I guess that needs to have a serial number because God forbid you have something plastic to throw at somebody.
Well, when
sounds
all
dangerous.
Fails,
You put an eye out with a plastic railing.
Have you ever seen a plastic railing drop from 30,000 feet? Trust me, you don't want it.
I bet it wouldn't tickle.
It might turn you into a ghost gun. We'll just put it that way. Maybe he's going for the long play here. Maybe he's a huge fan of Ghost Adventures, and because now he invented this ghost gun, he's going to get his own ghost program on Travel Channel after this is all over.
I think every politician, as their career starts to wind down, starts thinking about how they're going to make money in the private sector. Yeah,
and
so you might be onto something. Let's
call a spade a spade. It might be the most entertaining ghost sitcom / quote unquote documentary.
He'd just be swinging at sounds.
That's a dog-faced pony like I saw him, and he charges in. Camel, is that you? No, it's not me, Joe. I'm on radio. I'm down in the basement. Coming to you, acting like I knew you.
What kind of accent did you just give Kamala? What was that?
It was a basic woman accent on a radio. I missed the.
Oh, okay. Well, you didn't say over. You didn't say over, so I didn't know that you were done.
I'm coming to you, acting like I knew you.
So Joe, again, keeping with the theme here, he's
getting a lot of poltergeist activity over here. Sorry, I could not.
So he laments the fact that the ATF wrote a report in 2000, and they were tracking firearms trafficking in the United States, and he was really bummed out about that. Joe was like, "Listen, we need the ATF to write more reports." Because that's going to educate legislators who I'm totally bypassing with all my executive legislation anyway, or my executive orders anyway. They need to know firearms trafficking in the United States so they can act legislatively. And I thought, 2000. Well, Obama wasn't in office in 2000, which means Joe wasn't vice president, which means that report was written before Operation Fast and Furious.
Oh boy.
Now, you might say, Dane, what was Operation Fast and Furious? Well, funny you should mention it.
Like, listen, okay, so like Vin Diesel had this totally hot sister that Paul Walker was really interested in. And then he's like, I'll race you for her. And that's when we started like, it's not okay. Hashtag me too. Women aren't objects. They're people too. And I think that's what Fast and Furious was all based on, right?
You're within the same galaxy.
Okay, that's good. I like to be there.
I think there were guns
I'm in the Milky Way.
In some of the Fast and Furious movies.
It should have ended there, but then they made like 20,000 more of them, and it didn't get any better. Go ahead.
Yeah. So,
fair enough.
So that's one Fast and Furious, but Operation Fast and Furious, which took place during the Obama administration when Uncle Joe was vice president, was an operation conducted by the federal government to intentionally get, as they would call them, weapons of war into the hands of drug traffickers and cartel members across the border, because the theory was Let's get these guns into their hands, and we're going to track the guns, and we're going to trace them through the little web of criminality all the way back to the cartel leaders in Mexico, and that's how we're going to bust them. Well,
They lost track of the guns.
government doing what government does.
We made a whoopsie daisy.
It's like a never-ending cycle of that. What's that song goes? There's got to be a song for it. Benny Hill.
Benny Hill. There you go.
Yeah. That's basically how the federal government works. They lost track of the guns, and those guns wound up, you're never going to guess, actually in Mexican drug cartel members' hands, which were then used to kill innocent civilians.
And then
Mexico.
they asked, all right, where's your tracker? Funny story. We forgot to put them on. They're all still right here, but we can go with more fast and more furious part B, and then we'll actually put them on them this time.
So on this point of Joe's, blubbering, maybe he has a point. Maybe the ATF should have been writing reports post 2000, because then maybe they would have figured out that their own government, or themselves, were engaged in trafficking to cartels. So
That's never happened before,
good for them, right?
We've never been foisted by our own petard before, have we? It's never happened ever.
So to that I say, go for it, Joe. Write all the reports tracking all of your own gun trafficking activities, and report back to base when you find out something.
And then take all the blame on the American government for messing it all up. Yeah, that happens every day. The government comes out and says, oops, we messed up. Hold us accountable.
Did it again.
We made you believe we're more than just friends.
In the game.
Oh, baby. But they're so sexy.
Shout out to the Brits.
But they're so sexy, though. It's Britney, bitch.
Okay.
Please.
My bad. All right. So, Joe, never the daunted, always undaunted, never daunted. To continually remind you that he has no idea what the hell he's talking about when it comes to guns. The next point he makes is about stabilizing braces on pistols. And you got to watch the video. We're going to put up the show notes. Joe does his little role play where he pretends like he's got a little pistol with a brace up to his shoulder. And he's like, yeah. And then you shoot it like this and it's bad. And so Joe's argument for why pistol braces are a problem, he says, because it basically turns a pistol into a short barrel rifle, and then it makes them more lethal because it makes them more accurate. If you have a stabilizing brace, you hit your target easier. We got things to say about that. David, what, are we worried about guns being more accurate?
Well,
I don't know about you. When I shoot my gun, I want it to go in 47 different directions.
Well, you could have like that attachment where it just sprays in all different directions, and like you can get a new upgrade where it sprays triangularly. Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking about like super soakers. No, guns usually you want to look down the sight and want to hit the thing that you're aiming at.
Yeah, so that you don't hit something that you're not aiming at.
You don't want to hit Miss Trotsky. You want to hit the burglar. So anyway, and then how do you do that, Dane? So if he's saying that it's making the gun more accurate, more efficient, and used more properly.
And therefore, keyword, more lethal.
More lethal.
According to his argument, yes.
Which I don't know why you would buy a gun to bring somebody back to life. However, so does that mean that you can't practice with your gun to know how it works, to become more efficient, and thusly more lethal with your gun? Is he going to outlaw practicing with your gun? You can buy a gun, but just don't even look at it. Just put it in your cabinet and don't even say the word G. In fact, cut out the letter G from all of your vernacular. Don't even say it anymore. Words that start with it, or words that end with it.
You're allowed to have a gun because, again, we're not violating the non-absolute Second Amendment.
Do that.
But you can have a gun and use
Even
it
though
as a paperweight.
It's totally like just implications. Like you can do it, but definitely don't, because as we know, it's nothing. No amendment is fixed in stone.
Yeah,
as I said before,
it's a paperweight. That's it. Learn it, love it, let it.
With 6 baby bullets.
But the other thing, and again, to the point that I was making about having absolute dick in terms of knowledge about guns. The two things typically that make guns quote unquote more lethal are bullet velocity and caliber, not how accurate you are with it. So, if his objective is to make pistols less lethal, the bullet the brace is not exactly the component you would want to go after.
Dane?
Not that I'm giving Joe tips on what to go after.
Dane, just a thought crept up in my mind. How long has Joe Biden been in the Senate?
Jesus, I don't know. At least 4 of my lifetimes.
Okay.
Not that long.
I mean, he's been with vice president for 8 years, and now he's right, and he's going to be president for at least 4. Okay, so if he's so worried about American citizens getting killed by gun violence, how many wars has he overseen in all those years? That's got to be at least Iraq. That's got to be at least both Desert Storm and the new Iraq. That's got to be at least all the wars that we've started as offshoots from the second Iraq, and now the new military aggression being bestowed upon Syria and re-engagement. So he's so caring about American lives that he's overseeing multiple wars in his constituency?
Yeah, David, because don't you know that people that just so happen to be born on the other side of some arbitrary line, putting them in X state versus that state, so not state to not confuse people that we're not talking domestically. Country, yes. If you had the unfortunate circumstance of being born in the wrong country, when Biden and the rest of his war-hawk cronies say, I think we're going to exterminate your entire village. Well, I mean, I guess you just don't count. Not to mention the American service personnel who they just continue to send into buzzsaw after buzzsaw after buzzsaw in pursuit of regime change that accomplishes nothing except wasting American blood and treasure. Yeah, I guess you might have a point there that Joe, as the benevolent dictator-in-chief, really doesn't have much of a leg to stand on in terms of who's dying from what guns.
My whole thing is that he really cares about American loss of life due to gun violence.
Yeah.
Seeing as he's probably voted to send them more than once.
Right, of course. Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
So, Joseph's hypocrisy aside, he wants to, moving on to his next point, by the way, Joe wants to make it easier, according to himself, for states to enact red flag laws. Now, first and foremost, pretty sure any state can impose a red flag law if they want. They don't need Joe's permission to do it. So making it easier or not is kind of neither here nor there. But as with all things, so here's a little helpful tip, right? Whether you like Joe or you don't like Joe. For anybody that says, quote unquote, there should be a law, apply that to anything. What you're really saying is people with guns, government agents, need to enforce X behavior on people by force if they don't do it voluntarily. So in this context, when you say there should be red flag laws, which basically says we're going to take the guns and you get due process later. If somebody calls in somebody for being a danger to themselves or others, police can go knock on their door, raid their house, take their guns away from them, and then they got a petition later to get them back. Now, keeping in mind that this means, again, increasing confrontation between state agents and civilians, I put to you, dear listener, this little hypothetical. Who does it seem to be are most adversely impacted by laws or regulations that increase the incidence of confrontation between state agents and civilians?
Law-abiding citizens, Dane? Can I go with A for law-abiding citizens?
Yeah, that's the more, if we're doing a concentric circle, that's the larger circle.
Thank you.
Right? But more specifically, what I'm referring to is usually minority communities are targeted when a new law goes into place that allows the police to go create confrontations where they otherwise wouldn't exist. the classic example of this was Eric Garner in New York City. A man was literally killed for selling loose cigarettes. Because they had a local ordinance that said he couldn't do that, the police confronted him. He didn't want to be arrested. He should not have been arrested. He's not harming anybody by selling loose cigarettes. He didn't want to get arrested. The confrontation escalated all the way to a chokehold until he died.
And he said, "I can't breathe." He was the original person that said, "I can't breathe."
Exactly. Now, Eric Garner is a high-profile example of this general principle that we're laying out here, is that when you say there should be a law, you are increasing the chances that there will be confrontations between state agents and people. And typically, the first people, the ones on the front lines of confrontation with the police, are usually lower income and minority communities.
But Dane, it seems
so it's a little hypocritical to me when the left brings up this gotta have gun control, this, that, and whatever, when they know that the very communities that they're supposed to be the champions of know that they're going to bear the brunt of these new laws.
Like they're passing these laws to incite peace. But as we know from aforementioned episodes and aforementioned dealings with the government, that whatever law they pass under the auspices of, it's usually contradictory the result that those laws yield.
Yeah, the point that David made on some episodes a while back, about the Patriot Act is about the most unpatriotic thing you could possibly imagine. We have a show titled about the CARES Act not giving a shit because
Could care less.
Yeah.
That's the name of these.
I should probably know the titles of our own episodes. But yes, basically whatever the law says it's doing, it is doing the exact opposite. If it says it's putting money in your pocket, it's taking money out. If it says it's patriotic, it's probably violating several of these, non-absolute amendments to the Constitution, according to Joe. So, just food for thought. Just your two cumble hosts.
It's okay.
I'm starting to sound like Joe. The AFT.
You did slip up on it earlier, too.
I know.
Dear God, your hair's turning gray as we speak.
Turning into Joe.
Oh, my God. You're tripping over stairs.
Listening to Joe is making me lose brain cells to the point that I'm eventually
You're becoming early
senilic. And which brings us to our final point of Joe and his it's been said.
This horse is damn near dead.
So you might be asking yourself, all right, Dane and David, how's Joe going to do this? Is there somebody that he's going to put in? Is he going to have like a gun czar? Is he going to have somebody who's commanding and controlling this whole thing? And as luck would have it or not have it, the answer to that question is yes. And the choice for who's going to run the show on all of this stuff.
Pause.
It's an interesting guy.
Pause. And before we start listing this, just remember when Trump was electing his cabinet and his heads of all these different things, the left's argument was that they're the antithesis of who you want running these organizations. Because if it was an economically conscious development, he put an oil tycoon in front of it. If it was this, he put the opposite into it. And that was their whole argument, is that he's putting people that are going to eviscerate the organization because they've been opponents of it for so long. Now, Dane, please pull back the curtain and tell me that this is the most educated, most affluent, most decorated person that could possibly attain this position.
Well, we'll give Joe his credit on this one, because if you're looking for a gun control zealot, this is the guy you want.
Perfect. Thank God. I was worried
right?
I was worried that the American government was completely inept.
I know. So this gentleman's name is David Chipman, and he is a career parasite, federal government employee. Worked for the ATF for 20 plus years. You'll never guess he was present at both Ruby Ridge and Waco. Now you might wonder, well, what kind of experience does that give him? Well, let me tell you. At Ruby Ridge,
both of those ended very well, right? Like, all the hostages walked out.
I'm pretty sure the bad guys got the guns taken away from them and arrested.
And they gave them up willingly. Gave them up willingly.
Correct.
They just said, "Hey, give us those guns." They go, "You know what? We got a little carried away."
Yeah, because David Chipman and the rest of his, dog-faced pony soldier ATF
There's
buddies,
another David involved in the Waco incident.
There is. But let's get to the meat and potatoes. So at Ruby Ridge, that resulted in the death of a 14-year-old boy and the wife of the perpetrator. At Waco, it resulted in the death of 76 people, including innocent women and children. So David Chipman,
is that the Branch Davidians? That was David Koresh.
Yes,
correct.
At Waco, right?
Boom.
Now you might think, well, this Chipman guy doesn't seem, he seems to be very super gun control. He's very anti-gun in terms of anybody that's not a federal agent and is using guns to kill people, including innocent people.
Question mark.
That's what David's all about. Not this David. We like this David. This David on this show is a good David.
There's tons of us, and
Chipman we can go suck a railroad spike.
There's tons of us Davids, and not all of us represent the crest accordingly. But I will say, wasn't Waco arguably one of the most mishandled hostage situations that we've ever had?
Yeah. Well, and speaking on that hostage situation, let's just give you a little insight into the type of person that David Chipman is. So not only was he present at Waco, actually pretty recently, he did what's called an AMA, an Ask Me Anything on Reddit. And he was telling people about his escapades with the ATF, and he talked about Waco. And he claimed that the Branch Davidians actually shot down Texas National Guard helicopters with 2 Barrett 50 cals. And you might think, well, that's kind of bad, right?
Question.
Yes?
Did the Barrett 50 cal exist at that time?
Yes.
It did?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
How long have we had a Barrett 50 cal?
But bigger point.
I'm just astonished that we came up with that weaponry so quickly. Go ahead.
Bigger point, it never happened.
Oh, shocking. I had already gotten to the lead. That's why I asked about the Barrett, because I already knew that was going to be the bigger surprise than it never happened.
So the point that we were trying to make about giving you a little window, little peeksy poo into who David Chipman is. He is a gun toting, trigger happy federal agent, ready to use guns to shoot at people that he don't want to shoot back at him, and he's fully willing to lie, bald face, about stuff that he and his agency did in order to make themselves look not quite as scummy as killing 76 people.
And what, if anybody, should ever be called what our president would call him?
A dog-faced pony soldier.
There you go. That's exactly what he is. He enlisted a dog-faced pony soldier to enact all these things that definitely aren't going to affect the amendment of the second, but it's definitely going to affect the Second Amendment. I'll tell you that much right now.
Listen, I, for one, am just totally happy that the guy that's going to be running this whole Rube Goldberg type, regime that Biden's setting up here
Google
is
Rube
somebody
Goldberg.
Who's willing to lie about what an agency does, because government never lies, never pins things on alleged criminals.
You know what befuddles me, Dane? They still think that they can just say shit, and we're not 5 seconds from finding out whether or not they fucking lied or not. The most cursory Googles. Were there 2 helicopters shot down in the Waco incident?
Googles.
Dude, no helicopters crashed. We would have known that. They would have covered it.
Bro,
why would you? Why?
Bro,
why do you keep doing it? Why do you keep lying? We know. And then the more you lie, the more we don't trust you that you say, well, amendments are really just suggestions anyway. Really? That's interesting that you got into the presidency and now you're saying that amendments are suggestions. But we totally trust you because you always tell us the truth, even though you fucking don't. Operation Paperclip, MLK, or not MLK. What was it? When the CIA was dosing
Ultra.
MK Ultra, thank you.
But yeah, they also had some blood on their hands, and
I'm sure they. What about the Iran Contra? They've never lied to us.
Listen,
They've
everything according to these people, everything is a conspiracy theory until it's a conspiracy fact.
But then it's never a conspiracy fact. Is it? Is it? When was the last time that you heard that, you know what, you're right, the CIA off Kennedy? I mean, it's all right there.
Again, we don't have to stay in the conspiracy land. Let's just go with the ones that we know for a fact, the ones that you just named.
Sure.
Right.
But do they ever own up to it? Like, you got us.
I mean,
or are they going to keep?
Have to own
are they going to keep?
That's how. That's how we
they
know
never.
It's a
they
fact.
never.
Yes,
but that's
they've
the
admitted.
point.
They've admitted Ultra. That's how we know that it's a fact. They've admitted Paperclip. They've admitted Mockingbird.
Well, in other news, the government admits that Operation Paperclip.
Yeah. No, it's on the 40.
Another news.
It's on the 47th
Kim
page.
Kardashian's butt grew by 2 centimeters today. Don't you want to watch that?
All right. Well, before we go completely off the rails, I think that we pretty much beat the living shit out of this horse. David,
do you mean
do you have anything
this
else?
Horse face, dog face, pony liar?
Dog face, Sony soldier.
Die, you dog face, pony soldier.
You know, at the risk of getting canceled, I just, for my portion of the episode, I don't know if David has any more to say. I just want to say 2 things. Fuck you, Joe, and fuck you, David Chipman. Come and take them.
I'm glad you added that second part, because I was going to be able to be very offended that you signed off with that. But no, I've got no other things to say. I think we've covered all the topics that. I mean, you keep telling us that he's a good guy, but he keeps doing the same shit.
By the way, David did really good on this episode with not dropping the F-bomb.
I did one.
I doubled him up. I'm sorry,
And I was
Grandma.
I was upset with myself that I didn't at least drop one, so I forced one in there. I'll be
Love
honest.
you, Grandma.
That was a forced F word. Love you, Grandma. Anyway, anywho, I'm just going to say that, like, they keep telling us to trust them, but they keep doing everything for us not to. So for you to keep trusting him is kind of your fault now.
It's on you,
You know,
bro.
it's like that. It's that boyfriend that keeps cheating on you. It's like, I did it once because I was really drunk. I love you. But what about the second time? She drugged me. And by her drugging me, I mean I had like one too many, and I went home with her because she was a ride. And then, but what about the third girl that you cheated on me? Babe, don't you know they mean nothing to me? Like, how many times you want to do that? It's your choice, America. Keep going down that same road. But, you know, a third party, that's crazy.
Keep going, America. You're doing great, honey.
That's crazy. You're doing great.
All right. So
where can they find this, Dane?
I think with that being said, yes, they can find this at first outlet of choice, wmdpodcast.com/38. Come there.
That's a lot.
Join the email list. Go to the support us tab. Make sure you allow the cookies so you can see our Amazon link and click through there to support the show for free to you, or sign up for a monthly membership, or
if they go with the hand job of our
friends.
Preferences. Where do they find us? On any podcast catcher that could possibly be, you know, a lot easier to find us on.
Yeah, you can find us.
You just have to know our name and just find us.
Exactly. Listen, if you type in weapon, I know because I did it the other day because, you know, I'm a narcissist. I typed in weapons of meme destruction in Google the other day, and there was like 47 different podcast catcher options for us.
Right.
There's a lot. We're doing good. We're doing big things out here.
We're not nothing, but I will say it is the hand job of all the ways that you can listen to us. So if you want to go full bore and really make us love
second option after the website, just because we want you to stop by the website and, you know.
But we're still really appreciative that you did it to us.
Yeah.
And keep doing it.
Second option, YouTube, like, subscribe, share. Drop a little comment in there. Tell Carlos how good of a job he did. Lie to him, essentially, is what we're asking. And if you like the way
this sounds, who would you hit up?
I think you would hit up Podsworth.
There you go.
At podsworth.com. Chris is a audio genius.
He's a good boy. He's a real good boy.
He makes these two slappies sound not quite so slappy-ish. But with that being said, I think we've thoroughly eviscerated Biden on his gun control agenda, Dave.
And we didn't even...
Is that it?
I mean, we kind of made fun of his senility, but we didn't make it the main point. And I feel like that's
a credit to us.
I feel like
that's a credit to the content of our character.
Right.
All right. Well, with that being said, let's save some of that content and character for next week. Over and out.
Right up your tuchus.